Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Among other public buildings in a certain town, which for many reasons it will be prudent to refrain from mentioning, and to which I will assign no fictitious name, there is one anciently common to most towns, great or small, to wit, a workhouse. And in this workhouse was born the item of mortality called Oliver Twist. After a few struggles, Oliver gave the first proof of the free and proper action of his lungs. A faint voice imperfectly articulated the words, "Let me see the child, and die." The surgeon said with more kindness than might have been expected of him, "Oh, you must not talk about dying yet."
"Law bless her dear heart, no," interrupted the old nurse. "When she has lived as long as I have, sir, and had 13 children of her own, and all of 'em dead except 2, and them in the workhouse with me, she'll know better than to take on in that way. Bless her dear heart. Think what it is to be a mother. There's a dear young lamb, do."
Apparently this consolatory perspective of a mother's prospects failed in producing its due effect. The patient shook her head and stretched out her hand towards the child. The surgeon deposited it in her arms. She imprinted her cold white lips passionately on its forehead, passed her hands over her face, gazed wildly round, shuddered, fell back, and died. The surgeon leaned over the body and raised the left hand. The old story," he said. "No wedding ring, I see." Oliver cried lustily. If he could have known that he was an orphan left to the tender mercies of church wardens and overseers, perhaps he would have cried the louder. Oliver Twist's 9th birthday found him keeping it in one of the branch workhouses some 3 miles off, in the coal cellar, with a select party of 2 other young gentlemen who, after participating with him in a sound thrashing, had been locked up therein for atrociously presuming to be hungry, when Mrs. Mann, the good lady of the house, was unexpectedly startled by the apparition of Mr. Bumble, the beadle. Mrs. Mann ushered the beadle into a small parlour, placed a seat for him, and officiously deposited his cocked hat and cane on the table before him.
"Now, will you take a little drop of something, Mr. Bumble?" said Mrs. Mann persuasively. "Just a little drop?"
The beadle stirred the gin and water.
"I drink your health with cheerfulness, Mrs. Mann."
And he swallowed half of it.
"And now, about business," said the beadle. "The child, Oliver Twist, is 9 years old today."
"Bless him,"
interposed Mrs. Mann.
Oliver being now too old to remain here, the board have determined to have him back into the workhouse. I've come out myself to take him there, so let me see him at once."
Oliver was led into the room by his benevolent protectress.
"Will you go along with me, Oliver?"
said Mr. Bumble in a majestic voice.
"Will she go with me?"
inquired poor Oliver.
"No, she can't," replied Mr. Bumble, "but she'll come and see you sometimes."
This was no very great consolation to the child. Young as he was, however, he had sense enough to make a feint of feeling great regret at going away. Hunger and ill usage are great assistants if you want to cry, and the little companions of misery he was leaving behind were the only friends he had ever known. The room in the workhouse in which the boys were fed was a large stone hall with a copper at one end, out of which the master, dressed in an apron for the purpose, ladled the gruel at meal-times. Of this festive composition, each boy had 1 bowl, and no more. Boys generally have excellent appetites. Oliver Twist and his companions got so voracious and wild with hunger that one boy was afraid he might some night happen to eat the boy who slept next to him. A council was held. Lots were cast who should walk up to the master after supper that evening and ask for more, and it fell to Oliver Twist. The evening arrived. The gruel was served out. The gruel disappeared. Oliver rose from the table and advancing to the master, basin and spoon in hand, said, "Please, sir, I want some more." The master was a fat, healthy man, but he turned very pale. He gazed in stupefied astonishment on the small rebel for some seconds, and then clung for support to the copper.
"What?" said the master in a faint voice.
"Please, sir," replied Oliver, "I want some more."
The master aimed a blow at Oliver's head with the ladle and shrieked aloud for the beadle. Mr. Bumble rushed into the room in great excitement. Oliver was ordered into instant confinement, and next morning it was arranged that Oliver should go to Mr. Sowerberry, the parochial undertaker, upon liking, a phrase which means that if the master find, upon a short trial, that he can get enough work out of a boy without putting too much food into him, he shall have him for a term of years to do what he likes with.